Okay. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. The time is 3:02 p.m. This is the Youngstown City Council Safety Committee meeting. My name is Anita Davis. I am chairperson of this committee and also 6th Ward City Council. Also present on the here with us are Councilman Jimmy Hughes, Vice Chair, Councilwoman Basha Adams-Stack, Committee Member, Councilman Julius Oliver, Chief Robin Lees, Clerk Jennifer Osinger, and Valencia Mauro, City Clerk. And we're going to start on this agenda with the roll call out of the way. On to new business, and I'm going to go this in opposite order. So we're going to start with about the speed trailers and the signage. I asked Valencia to mail everyone copies of the information that I'd gotten from Traffic Logic. I think you all have it. I had reached out to Traffic Logic. There have been some complaints about speeding and hello? Okay. Speeding in my ward, and I know other wards have had similar complaints about speeding. And I thought one of the things that we could do, or at least on my part, that's, each council person can decide for themselves, but I was looking at using some of my city discretionary funds to purchase these portable speed signs. These are like the mobile, the ones that are on a trailer, but these you can move from one location to the other. And I asked them to send information along with pricing for your review and for your consideration. It's going to be up to each of you, but I wanted to get that out there. The speed trailer, the speed signs, they run in the area of about $2,500 to $2,900 for each sign for these portable ones. I know that it's my intention to have at least 2, maybe 3 for my ward. And I'm going to be asking the community police officers to assist in moving these signs around. So if you all have that information, and I want to let you know that these both Traffic Logic and also Custom Signals I dealt with in the past when I was still with the police department. They also sent some pricing information that I haven't gotten to you yet, but they would both like to do a presentation to the committee if you are so amenable to that. And I need to get your feedback on that. If you would like to have a presentation done, whether you wanted to have it, if you wanted one done, do you want it done as a virtual or in person? Because it would be outdoors. So any comments? Basha?
Thank you through the chair. Well, thank you for looking into that and getting that information. But yes, because I would like to have those signs as well. So I definitely would like to have a meeting. And then I don't have a preference, whether you guys want to do it virtually or in person, whatever, everybody else is most comfortable with is fine with me.
Jimmy, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was trying, but I think Julius beat me to it though, so we can get him.
Thank you so much.
Julius?
Thank you for yielding your time to me. I don't have a preference either. I would definitely like to have a presentation, but I'm okay with outdoors. I'm okay with virtual. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I prefer the virtual to the chair.
Okay. I'll arrange it. I'll try to arrange it for I don't know if we'll have time for November. We may have to move the date up, but I'll reach out to both customs and traffic and ask them to do a virtual presentation, because that is our preference. And you guys can decide from there which way you want to go. Does everyone know what I'm talking about with those signs? You've seen them before. You're driving down this road and pops up there and says your speed is. So I think that would be a good tool to remind people to slow down. I now have a thoroughfare on Fernley. So, and I know Boston, you got one too. Jim?
I've seen the ones a little, I don't know if they, how organized those are, but I've seen the little 2x3 type signs that they erected on telephone poles or that time. Is this part of the demonstration?
Yeah.
Those, so they're not just the trailer ones. These are the ones you can stand alone on a pole or something.
Well, if you're interested in the trailer as well, I can ask them to do a presentation on the trailers.
No, I'm familiar with all of them, but I was more interested in the standalone ones.
That's what I'm interested too. With the standalone, I can have them posted. They could be there for a week, 2 weeks, and then move to another location. So if you have a preference for the ones that stand alone as opposed to the speed trailers, I'll let them know.
I just thought hopefully you have a demonstration for that. I mean, the other one speaks for himself, but the little portable ones is easier to move around, and the trailers is easy once you have the necessary equipment to trailer them around. But you can put the standalones up without the trailer, without a truck or something called a trailer.
Right. And the cost is about 4 times the cost of the sign by itself. Okay, so I will make a notation of that set that up for next month's safety meeting. I'm going to ask the chief, since he's here. Chief, is there anything that you can do on Chief Lee's on your part so far as assisting in some traffic enforcement?
Through the chair, I did have traffic seek estimates from the company we've been doing business with as far as the speed trailer and the sign goes. Their estimate was considerably higher. I can't seem to locate the quote that I have, but what I'll do is I'll have Lieutenant Ross email it out to the rest of you in case you want to look at this vendor as well and look at maybe the pros and cons of what the devices will do. One of the things that we've found helpful is that they'll collect the data and you're able to download it and look at, what the actual speeds are. What we find a lot of times, particularly in residential neighborhoods, is that there's a lot of cars maybe going over the speed limit, but basically under what would normally be an enforcement threshold. And people have the feeling that there's a lot more speeding going on than there is. So that's able to kind of weed that out. The other thing is that it'll identify the times when most of the violations are taking place and things of that nature. So as I said, I'll have Lieutenant Ross send that out to you all. I think during the last meeting, I suggested you each send me 2 streets that you've got problems on, and we try to focus on those using some of the money, and then when we can spare patrols or we're out doing other things.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Anyone else have questions for Chief Lees about the speed and traffic enforcement? Okay. Thank you, Chief, on that note. So we're going to move on to discuss these hot sheets. The hot sheets, I called, is her name Julie, Chief? Julie Orto?
Yes.
I called Julie because I did have some questions about the hot sheets, how she collected her data and everything. I know that she's in a meeting right now, so she's not able to attend. Is she here?
I think that was Jeff Lemby.
Okay. I see iPhone 4. But, so Chief, these stats that Julie gives to us on a regular basis, what do you do with them?
They're used pretty much as they always have been. They're distributed throughout the department. Primarily, they go to the patrol division roll calls and any other, again, departments within. The information, I think, is actually collected and put out by the day turn desk. I think Julie sends them to you guys after they produce them.
Mm-hmm. But what do the turns do in response to this kind of information? Do they initiate things on their own on the turn itself to take action? Because from my understanding from Julie, particularly on this one right here, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, of course, now I got my. So anyhow, on the mapping one, that's just a snapshot of that moment, and it's over a 2-week period. But what if something's going on like right now?
Okay,
Really,
sorry.
right now.
Yeah, you were talking about hot sheets, and what you're talking about is the crime mapping.
Yes.
The hot sheets are the ones that we produce daily with the list of, again, reports of everything from stolen cars, runaways, and that kind of thing. The crime mapping that she does, that's used primarily to look at hotspots that have developed, other areas of concern. And again, a lot of times what we end up doing with some of this stuff is using it in grant applications and things of that nature. As far as something that's going on right now, the officers will get that in their roll calls. As far as the daily briefings that they're getting, whether it would be on the turns of the detective bureau or one of the squads. So
do the turn captains, turn commanders, do they utilize this data to, on a daily basis, so far as in scheduling and things like that? That's what I want to kind of find out, like what's their response when they get this kind of information? What steps do they do to take this information and put it to use?
Through the chair,
Yes.
It'll depend on the deployments. And I'll give you just one quick example. Frequently, we might turn up short as far as staffing cars. So looking at the crime mapping and the other data that we have, if you're going to short a particular side of town a car, you might look at this as to where you might pull that car from, as well as if you were going to staff an area of the city more heavily than another, that would also be a guide.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the chief about? Chief, I do have a question. On the hot sheet, it says that it's confidential information. What's confidential? I mean, isn't this information from the news hook? Can't anyone get it off the news hook?
Through the chair, the actual hot sheets,
Yes.
if they still contain that, it's probably something that has just continued over the years. The media does have access to that most of the time. If there's something on there that we feel is sensitive, obviously we wouldn't send it out, but that's just a warning that goes along with it, as much as you'd have attached to the end of your email if you're not the intended person for that correspondence.
Well, Chief, is this data, is this public information, or is there a place that the public can go to access this information?
Are you talking about the mapping?
The hot sheets, the mapping, the crime reports. Does the public have to come down to get this information, or can they go online and get it like they do the traffic reports?
They would have to probably call, and then we would email them whatever they were looking for in the way of a particular report. As far as everything being available online, we're not there yet. We do have a new report system, but I don't know what the availability is to open up all the reports for basically random scrutiny. As it goes now, if you have a particular report you're looking for or incident, they'll locate it and then send it out.
So the public then would not know if there was a problem like the next street over. There's nowhere for the public to go find out if there's a problem in their neighborhood, as opposed to just next door. No, that's one. And like I want my constituents to be able to know that if there's there's been break-ins the next street over, that they can be, they know about it and that they can pay special attention. So if there's somewhere that they can find out this information, as opposed to just walking around blind. Chief, thank you.
What I would say is I'm going to have to check on that because, like I said, with the new report system, I'm not sure, but I still think that you'd probably have to call and check. But let me look into that and get back to you because I would think there would be some way to do that.
Okay, but then my next question would be to you: these maps and things. There's nothing confidential about them. It's okay to release this information to the public, like put it on our websites and things.
Well, yeah. Some of it I would be a little hesitant to where they do the heat maps because again, if you look at that without understanding the interpretation of it, it can be a little misleading. As far as the map that tracks the reported crimes, I don't think that would be a problem if you wanted to put that out.
Now, which one is that, Chief? Is that the daily report, or which one? No,
that would be the one that you see the shaded areas and the various hues of activity in that, because that tends to change each time you look at it and depending on what you're looking at. So the interpretation there might be a little skewed at times, but the map that provides the location of various crimes with the different symbols, I don't think there would be a problem with that going out.
Okay, could you ask Julie to maybe tag us somehow so we would know which ones could be made public to our constituents?
Will do.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have anything for the chief on this topic before we go to the plan to address the increase in crime? Okay, if not, we're going to go to the under new business, the last item, and that is the Youngstown Police Department plan to address the increase in crime, the contributing factors, and the police response. So Chief, I'll turn it over to you. Can you start us up?
Sure. And to get into this, let me lay a little bit of a foundation here. The whole issue with gun violence has been out front with the department and the administration for some time now. And this goes back to a couple of years ago. I've been to Columbus with the mayor, met with the governor, mayors and chiefs from other cities, and talked about things that might be done to curb the gun violence. And one of the things in particular was looking for some legislation to enhance penalties for some gun crimes. To that end, I actually testified before a legislative subcommittee that was looking into enhancing those penalties, and again tried to move that along. And right now, as far as I know, it's still in committee. So moving along, I would say in 2018, we had a spike as far as our violent crime goes. We had a rather busy fall where we had about 11 murders through October and November. And going into 2019, we looked at some ways to approach that. What we did was we started to run some joint operations with our state and federal partners, and with some very specific focuses. And the operational name it was given at the time was Steel Penguin. It, like I said, was focused with ATF and the Adult Parole Authority, as well as some of our officers. And what we were able to do with that, as well as some enhanced patrol efforts, was over 2019. By the end of 2019, we had decreased the number of murders by 30%, dropping from 28 to 20. We felt that those operations were successful, obviously. And in fact, that November, I was invited to a meeting with the United States Attorney General Barr up in Cleveland, along with some other selected chiefs and sheriffs, to talk about some of these successful operations and look for funding in the upcoming year. As a result, and council was presented with and approved the grant money that came in for those operations earlier this year. So last winter, we were in preparations with the State Patrol, again, the federal and state agencies that we worked with on Still Penguin. I had a proposal from our K-9 unit to approach interdiction a little differently and ramp that up. And so we were looking at all these things going into 2020. And as you all know, then COVID hit. So basically, it kind of put everything on hold. We were still trying to schedule some of the operations, and in talking to the other agencies, we went through a series of postponements, and then we had to basically just shut it down. And that included our operations. I think you guys know that we did everything we could to try and limit our officer and citizen contact. We were taking reports over the telephone, which we still are to some extent. We've got limited access to the building, and those folks who do have to come in for a report or other information don't get past the outer lobby downstairs. We've also dealt with trying to manage a couple of minor outbreaks of the COVID here within the department. And finally, you know, with the staffing challenges, we had last patrolman's list exhausted early last winter, and we have not been able, obviously, to give a test. Civil service was kind of in a bind to go through the routine of receiving applications, let alone trying to figure out how to schedule or conduct a test under these conditions. So as a result, we've reduced our number of community officers, as I think all of you know, reassigned some task force folks and somebody from the crime scene unit into patrol division just to try and keep you know, our number up there to some extent. So moving forward, and again, the Columbus Day weekend was a little challenging with the amount of violence we had there. And in response to that, we're starting to ramp up some of these other things. Today, we've had our first ILP meeting, which basically brings together staff and members from some of our other groups that are assigned to the task forces. And we go over basically intel information as well as everything else that impacts how we do our jobs on a day-to-day basis. We have not had one of these meetings since probably March with the outbreak. So we brought that back together. We're trying to centralize our intelligence gathering resources. We're looking at trying to resurrect the Steel Penguin operation or something similar to that. I've talked to the sergeant in charge of the K-9 unit. We're going to ramp up this interdiction effort that they want to take a shot at. And we're going to continue to look to the U.S. Attorney's Office to review cases for federal prosecution when it comes to gun crimes, as well as we're going to get the Vice Squad out there and start to you know, increase their activity a little bit, because they as well have been again kind of sidelined throughout this situation. So going forward, we're trying to get back to what we would have hoped to have started late this spring and through the summer. And we know that it's a proven model since it worked in 2019. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, I see, Julius, that you have your hand up, so I'll let you go ahead and get your question in. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. Chief, so when you had to shut your operations down, you know, violent crimes and criminal activity doesn't usually take a break. So first question is, you didn't have any sort of backup plan? And the second question is, did you have to lay off or furlough officers due to COVID? And if not, with the increase in violence, why are the residents reporting to myself and my colleagues that they didn't see, along with the violence uptick, they didn't see an uptick with police patrols in their neighborhoods or in those areas that were hotspots?
Through the chair, our staffing has been somewhat limited through the, like I said, the retirements and our inability to hire during that period. Anytime we had hotspots, we have tried to concentrate, effort over there. But again, we're, kind of 911 driven. So, our first priority is to answer those calls, and then to look to get into those hotspot areas and go after the problems. We have had something of an uptick again in the last few months, which we've again been kind of challenged to deal with circumstances, because, as I said, we tried to limit our officer to citizen contact throughout the pandemic here, and we're just starting to pick that up now. So, to answer your question, there, it was a little new to all of us, and we were trying to find our way through it. Now, this is not unique to us, and most other urban areas are experiencing the same thing, if not much more significant increases. You don't have to go any further than Warren, which has had a record number of murders this year, to see that, again, this is a problem right now on a national basis, really. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, follow up.
Go ahead, Councilman.
So my second line of thought is there was like some insinuations that, a plan was in place, and what you said, you were trying to resurrect Still Penguin, from last winter coming into what we anticipate to be a hot season every summer when it comes to violent crimes here in Youngstown. So my question is, had you ever brought that plan to this committee before? Or if you do have such plans, do you think it's advantageous to kind of update city council on these plans so that maybe we can give some type of reassurance to our citizens? Because to my recollection, I don't think that's happened this year. But it was insinuated kind of that was in place, but I don't remember that ever happening. And the second thing is, how quick is the response time when it comes to shot spotters? If you got 47 shots ringing out on Market Street, shot spotters is in close proximity, how quick usually does an officer get to that scene when it comes to shot spotters? And I'm asking that because I'm trying to get a gauge on how effective shot spotters actually is as a tool if we're still not catching certain individuals after the shots are spotted.
Okay, so Chief, do you have the times for that shot spotter call, for that call with the 47 gunshots? What time was did the shot spotter go off? What time was the call dispatch, and what time was the response?
No, I don't have that available right now. Our response times are actually pretty good for the most part. We're there within a few minutes as a rule, if not less. So I'd have to look that up. I mean, I could have it sent out to you guys, but the immediate responses are again not always going to happen, simply because of where the cars might be positioned at any time that shot spotter alert goes off. So it's a matter of where everybody's at a given time. But we have had some luck with shot spotter going off and actually making some arrests related to again those activations. One of the things that shot spotter can't be overlooked for is that it provides us with a lot of accurate information, pinpoints the location, and frequently helps us with leads as we cases.
Julius, did you have anything before I go to Basha?
No, I didn't get that first question.
Go ahead, Julius. I'm sorry.
I didn't get that first question answered.
Oh, okay. Yeah, getting back to the plans going into the spring, summer from last winter. No, it was not particularly shared with you folks. We talked about its success at the end of the year, and I, kind of felt that you guys would expect at least that to continue. The thing with planning strategies going into the season, I would prefer to celebrate the success as opposed to announce something that might impair that success. So, as much as we might go out, in advance and talk about, let's say, a traffic grant and enforcement of something like that, when we're dealing with situations where we're essentially trying to catch bad guys, I try not to advertise the strategy ahead of time, hoping that will, add to our success. I like to talk about it when we've been able to accomplish something, as opposed to putting people warnings.
This last follow-up through there.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, Chief, that the reason why the knowledge wasn't there is because the knowledge wasn't given. My last issue or question would be, are you still at this point with this uptick in violence? I know in the past you've been reluctant to fund crime prevention measures. Are you looking at or any type of grant funding or any type of spin-off from the police budget funding to go into crime prevention programming, or funding serve more so that he can have more boots on the grounds or more people in his department to be able to kind of curb the violence, or is that still a no?
Through the chair, we consistently pursue grants and funding for the SERVE program and to enhance what Guy Burney's doing on a day-to-day basis. In fact, I was under the impression he emailed all of you some of his programming stuff and the things that he's doing currently. We're looking at some new information and some things that we're trying to do. And again, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I know one's going to involve some podcasts with a local radio station. I know he's looking at some different mentoring programs, and I think that SERVE program itself is moving forward with the entire concept of prevention as well as intervention, which we just had a call in last week, and I would say that in this case, one of the individuals, Howell, that was killed within the last week, failed to show for the SERVE call-in, and I think it's unfortunate because what we found is those folks that show up for that call-in frequently, come away from that and benefit from it to where they accept the help or the resources that are being provided with the folks that are there to help them out. So we're, like I said, to answer your question, absolutely, we're always looking for additional funding for SERVE. We're always seeking grants, and we're always looking at other ways to bring in money for that program. And one of my colleagues just stopped in the office and was able to provide me with the information on that ShotSpotter call. The activation was at 11:39. We had a dispatch and arrival at 11:40. So within a minute, we had at least one car on the scene.
Thank you, Chief. I want to know that. Julius, you were done. Basha?
Thank you, through the chair. This isn't so much a question, but rather it's a comment. Going back to ShotSpotters, I am actually a big supporter and advocate of ShotSpotters. I would actually like to see it cover a larger area in the city. Aside of what Chief just mentioned, I look back to even that the shots fired over by Wilson Middle School. And I know when I heard the shots, I called and shot spotters already picked it up, and there was patrol on the scene within 30 seconds because they happened to be, you know, close in the area. But a lot of times, even with gunfire, it may seem that it's, you know, right down the street or behind your house. Even the 47 shots that happened on Market and Florida, they sounded like they were closer down the other way. So I like shot spotters because it is able to pinpoint and dispatch police in the event that residents don't call or don't know exactly where the shots are coming from. So I actually would like to expand the service area, but understanding that, you know, the cost is great. I believe, Chief, what is it? It's like 65,000 annually that we pay now. Or need to do, I think it's like 65, right?
Yeah, it's in that area.
But I would like to expand it. So that's all, just a comment.
Chief, Jimmy, I see your mic is, did you want to say something? You're still muted. Jimmy, you're still muted.
Sorry
There you
about
go.
that. No, I'm good. I did have a comment that I was making about the shot spotters and about the crime, but I can wait if you want to continue with something.
Well, Chief, I do have a question, and then this might gonna sound like I'm being argumentative, but during this time period, was the overtime, not the overtime, were the side jobs cut out? Were the officers made to not work their side jobs? Because that's an additional exposure.
Okay. I'm not following that. What do you mean? Where there's
you said that because due to COVID, that the physical interdictions slowed down to reduce the exposure of the officers. But were the officers still working their side jobs? Because if they were working their side jobs, would they be, you know, downtown, construction jobs, whatever, were side jobs still being permitted to be worked?
Through the chair, we're probably in some cases, but realistically, a lot of the secondary employment ended because of everything being shut down. So there was I guess a matching kind of reduction in secondary employment at the time, just because again, a lot of the jobs were shut down that the officers would normally be working. To answer your question, there were certainly less secondary employments going on during the period. For that matter, now, there's a lot of the officers that would normally be working, say the banquet halls, the restaurants, bars, and stuff like that are not working.
So hold on, Julius. So with the downtown bars and things, they've been reopened. The downtown details as a secondary employment, those are no longer being worked by our officers.
Through the chair, I haven't seen anything with officers working the individual locations. We still maintain the downtown walking through the department, but
right.
That's all I know of.
Okay, Chief, I would seriously like to find out about that, because one thing for certain, this is my attitude. If they had to curtail their traffic stops and their physical interdictions for the citizens of Youngstown, they doggone didn't need to be working a side job. Okay, that's an exposure that, a risk of exposure that we can't have if they can't do it for the citizens of Youngstown. Okay, so Chief, just give me a call, let me know what you find out, and you and I'll discuss it.
Okay, the other thing I would say is there anything in particular, because as I think about it, a lot of them were secondary employment in the schools, and of course those were closed down as well. So
the schools were true, the schools were shut down. A lot of the construction was delayed, but they're all operational right now. They all opened back up this is October, I think, back in June or July, even though it was on the limited numbers on the bars and things, but all the bars and restaurants reopened downtown. And that's why I want to make sure that if they were working downtown or any other side job, then they, we need to have a policy that says if we're going to slow down out here on the streets and not expose our officers to COVID in that direction, then they need not be exposed through their secondary employment. The primary employment is the most important. I know you agree with that one. Councilman Oliver.
I'll look
Yes, Chief,
into
I'm sorry.
I'll
Chief.
look into it. But like I said, I don't think there was much going on during that period for anybody, but I'll check into it.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Councilman Oliver, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I just wanted to, I may be thinking too futuristic here, but is there like a shot spotters like camera system? The shot go off and then it like pinpoints. I mean, I might be thinking of some RoboCop stuff or something, but you know what I mean? A camera system with the shot spotter. So I mean, I guess it would have to be cameras all over the place for it to work, but is that a thing? Is that program out there, Chief? Do you know?
Through the chair, it is, and part of your statement was true, is that then you kind of have to have cameras out there all over. To employ the cameras that are linked to the ShotSpotter system and activate accordingly, it's a very, very expensive system. With some of the community grant money that's become available, we're looking at installing some cameras in what we'd like to think are some strategic spots that we might be able to capture information where we're on some of the thoroughfares that we would hopefully, again, glean information where we might not be able to see the activity, but we would be able to capture somebody coming or going to the event. So that's being actively looked at. We've dusted off a proposal we had last year that we were looking at, and it looks like it would fit into that budget right now.
A quick follow-up through the chair.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for that information, Chief. And I would just ask that just like we do, like Anita mentioned, like in downtown areas and everything. I know sometimes it's side jobs, but other times it's a patrol. So, on the weekends when the bars and restaurants were open till 2, there always be a few more cop cars stationed downtown. And that was for the purpose of crime prevention, even if the bars or whatever were, hiring them for side jobs, or if they were stationed there for their regular beat at the time, they were there for crime prevention. So what I'm asking is it possible for us to do the same thing in hot spots in the city? You set a car somewhere where it's a trouble spot for crime prevention purposes.
Chief.
Through the chair, we've actually done that in some cases where we've had particularly active block or street, and again, that's effective. But the issue there is that you're really just parking the car there, and again, while it has been effective, we can't sometimes predict a lot of times where things are going to happen. So we try to focus in that general area. The patrol beats are drawn up accordingly. I think I've said in the past that we did an assessment with YSU Math and Stats where we took all the information, basically fed it into their systems up there. And after about 6 months of weighting the different seriousness of the calls and with regards to geographical areas, we came up with the patrol beats we have now. And when you look at it, the concentration of cars is in areas where, again, we typically have the most problems.
Thank you.
Chief Lees, when you mentioned a plan and you said that you had a plan at the end of last year that you plan on implementing, and you mentioned to Councilman Oliver that you didn't want to, put it out there. And I agree with you. If you have a plan to address the crime, we don't want the bad guys to know about it, but we should know about it, meaning council should know about it. And if you have a plan, then give us a call and set it up, and we can do a one-on-one, face-to-face via Zoom or whatever, but keep us abreast of it, because, you know, our community wants to know what is being done, because so much of this is the same thing we've heard before. You know, still Penguin works, but it's like, what are we going to do? What is the police department in particular going to be doing, if anything, that can address this on a more sustained basis, and not just when the special detail is going on? You know, I think your things with the cameras, you know, Chief, you know that I've been a big believer in surveillance cameras, and I want a substation. I think a more visibility in those cameras being out there will slow down some people. It won't stop all crime, and we can have 500 police officers out there. You know, here's what the public has to realize: 500 officers out there won't stop every crime, because, Chief, you and I know that there was one homicide that took place and the officer wasn't even a block away. So I know I'm not, but I do want to see a plan for, you know, we can't stop homicides, but can we stop some of these other things on a, I think what Councilman Oliver wants, on a more proactive basis and not just reactive. And I think your cameras are a good start.
Okay, through the chair, one of the reasons, again, when these plans come up, but I haven't discussed them with you, these are public meetings. And
I said one-on-one. I said
yeah.
one-on, let me interrupt you. One-on-one, just you and I, or you and Councilman Oliver, one-on-one, letting us know one-on-one what's going on. Not here. Well, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and through the chair, as chairman of the safety committee, that you might be the one to come in and we'll talk about such things, and then you can disseminate it accordingly. But I wouldn't want to get in the violation of any sunshine law or anything like that.
Chief, you know I'm not coming in, but you and I will do a Zoom meeting. I am not going to anyone's indoor office. Okay. We both know that one. Okay. Councilman Hughes, you had a comment that you wanted to make at the end, towards this end.
Yeah, this is not a question at all, because
okay,
it is true that Chief Lees and I differ, you know, probably vastly on crime prevention, but you know, and I don't, you know, and to his character and respect for him, I'm not trying to belittle or anything with that, but I rant and rave at times about we're doing this and we're not doing that. And that's not what this is about. We're going after guns. We're trying to remove guns from the street. I get that, you know, because that's what's killing people. But this country, this town, this state, we love guns. There's no illegal way to, there's so many legal ways to own a gun, possess a guns, and nobody trying to stop you. So when we have a war on guns, it's no different than a war on drugs, a war on crime. These things had come into place. Now, all the politicians that did that back in the day, they backtracking what they're doing. The war on the crack and war on drugs, you know, 3 strikes and you're locked up in prison for the rest of your life. Those things actually played out, and we had them in effect, and they didn't stop the crack, they didn't stop the drugs, they didn't stop this. And the war on guns, trying to count how many guns that we removed from the street, it's not going to do any better. We're not going to stop the shootings because we can't. It's impossible to take the guns off the street. It's impossible to let that be your barometer that you're doing prevention, and you have, you know, because how many guns you take off the street. I mean, obviously, I've been in programs and I've seen programs where we had hundreds, if not almost 1,000 guns taken off the streets of Youngstown, and it didn't slow nothing down. You know, that being said, that's my opinion. But on that, so if that's what your mob is now, I think this the community police project is nationwide. It's a great project. Very few cities really implement and expand upon the community police approach. They talk to the people. They got a pulse with the people. The SERB, which is, I believe, David Kennedy's program of dealing with the criminals and the gangbangers and the potential this and potential that, they have a pulse on the criminals. They talk to the criminals. Those two programs melded together can show you results, I think, and can show you big results. But we don't embrace that, and we won't embrace it because we're chasing the impossible. I don't care how many guns you bring, how many times you arrest somebody and you put them in jail for 30 years or 13 or 1 year because they have a gun. Now, you made a criminal for something that's totally legal, having a gun. So I personally think all the, the person who shouldn't have a gun is the person who shouldn't have a gun. But there's a ton of people out there are not criminals that have a gun for protection or because it's their constitutional right to have a gun. They made a mistake of where they had it at or where they went with it or what happened back and forth. Okay, but they was not involved in no crime. But that's me ramping and raving, so I'm going to backtrack off of that, But if you're not going to go after why we're having the shootings and why we're having the type crimes, if your plans, if we're not trying to address that as the individual criminals or person, then we're not going in the direction that we should be to try to end that or reduce it. Taking so many guns off the street and then we say we have so many of this and we have less of that. But what made the person pull the trigger is still vibrant in the community and continued on. Maybe it's domestic. Maybe it's I got robbed. Maybe it's retaliation. If any of those things working together, and I think us as a community, us as a city, we should put all our resources, as much as our resources, whether it's not just the police, into why the person is broke, why the person that's not working for that person. And our studies and our research, I mean, we get with YSU and they crunch numbers for us about where crime happened, nothing about why it happened. And so until we get to why, and until we go after the why, we're never gonna slow it down. We're never gonna reach zero. We're gonna always have this year's stats, one above or one low or 5 up and 5 down. This week stats, this month stats, it's always gonna be that. You gotta find the broken spoke in there. And we gotta go and try to fix that. And community policing goes a long way to doing that, much more, in my opinion, than how many we arrested during the week. The SERB program goes a long way. They're going the opposite approach. They're not supposed to be going out and see how many we arrest and especially the SERB. You're asking the criminals, hey, work with us. We got all these resources for you. We need to expand on those things. We need to get a clear plan as to why we're having crime. And it's not because of the guns. We have gun violence, yes. We have people using, but we also have sledgehammer violence. We have fire violence. We have run your car into somebody violence or run over somebody violence. That happened. We should be addressing these issues and identifying the why. And once we do that, and then we put all our resources in doing it, I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's jobs, but if it is jobs, we should be able to do that. And we should have a plan, I think, in this police department to address. When I first came as council, they said $2-3 million deficit in a short fashion we're going to be having in the city. And you can't have 20-something million dollars or in one department and thinking that that's not going to be where we're going to look for money at. And so until we're willing to do something like that, these kind of conversations are going nowhere, really. And really, I don't know, if it's this administration or next administration or whatever it is, but if you want, it's just numbers we're chasing. But the broken spokes, the people that are pulling the triggers, we don't answer the whys on those. And I think we need to. And we need to build our strategies of reducing crime through that. Again, I say the community police, the serve programs, those are more enhanced programs to do what we want done. And because one talks to the people and the other one talks to the bad person, you know? So put them both together and let them work and expand upon them. I think you're going to see a better results than we're doing about how tough we can get for how many guns we can take off the street. And what we already done that. We've done that with the war on crime back in the 90s and the 80s, you know, and everybody acknowledged that we went too far. Every president gets out except this one. When they get out of office, they letting everybody out of jail that's been in jail for getting tough on whatever they got tough on in the past. That's my comment. And I'm hoping that somewhere in all of this, sooner or later, we're going to be looking at the true problems and developing our plans for that.
Through the chair.
Before you go, Julius, go ahead.
I thank you, through the chair. Jimmy, I just want to say you is 100% on point. I need you to get on the news and have your own talk show right now and let everybody know what you just said, because especially to hear an ex-police officer, ex-chief say what you just said, that's exactly what the community need to hear, and that's exactly what the community need to be working towards. And I just want to commend you. I wish I would have said what you said, because that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
Chief.
Yeah, through the chair.
Please.
Response.
Before you respond, Chief, hold on. Before you respond, now I know, and please make sure you do respond to what Jimmy just said. Do you consider serve a success?
Absolutely.
Okay, then it needs to be expanded, and if we have to take the money from within, that I think it was 16 million or 17 million, but we need, if service is successful, then we need to expand serve. And that's not taking it from something out of the playground. We can't get it from the playground. Okay. We're going to go where the money is at. But Chief, you go ahead, and then I'll let, I thought I saw Bosch's hand again. Chief Lees?
Okay. Yes. Just briefly, I don't disagree with Councilman Hughes. But what I would say is that, again, we had proven success with an enforcement program to the tune of reducing murders by 30% in 2019. Now, keeping that in view, and the fact that that enforcement program didn't focus on the number of guns, it focused on the individuals we went after persons were prohibited from carrying guns. They had already committed crimes that prohibited them from having guns. And that was the focus of that program, was basically serious and serial offenders. Now, once you do that, I think you have to provide for a prevention and intervention model like SERVE. And finally, I agree with the community policing. I reestablished the community policing when I came in as chief, and I liked marrying the community officer with the council person to work on specific issues within those wards. The other thing was that we did a train the trainer with our community officers through the Department of Justice, and the feds came in, and we indoctrinated the entire department into the community policing philosophy. And in most cases was reintroducing the community policing philosophy. So that's out there. So I think what we need to do is understand we have to have a balance between all these components and fuse those together, because in the end, even SERVE is a bit of a carrot and stick routine. Look, we want to offer you a way out of this lifestyle. We want to offer you an opportunity, but if you fail to take that opportunity, well, the penalties are waiting for you on the other side. So I think we need to maintain balance, and we need to go forward in that manner without really throwing one away for the other.
Thank you. Chief, you say it's been the impact was 30%. What is that in real numbers?
It's going from 28 to 20.
28 to 20.
Correct.
That was from 2018 to 2019.
That's correct.
Okay, but we've had those numbers before, the 28, and we've had the drops before. I believe under when Councilman Hughes was police chief, he had some low numbers as well. Can you say that if you had more police officers, no, you cannot guarantee a reduction in crime. You can guarantee that you'll try. You can guarantee that you'll try to reduce the crime, but no police chief can promise a reduction in the homicides.
What I could guarantee is that what some of your colleagues are asking for, and that's a greater presence in some of the neighborhoods. The number of police doesn't necessarily always impact crime directly, but like I said, a lot of people want that visibility and that presence, and of course, more cops do that. Do I think that that's an absolute way to reduce crime? No, I agree with you on that point. But like I said, this is a bit of a balancing act, and I think we have to look at all those things as you go forward. I'd like to have more officers out there, particularly in certain areas where, again, they could be more visible, more proactive. At the same time, I'd like more of them out there so they could take the time to engage a little bit more than they do now with basically running on the 911 calls. And that was one of the purposes of the community officers, was to be able to have time to follow up on neighborhood problems, work directly with the council people, the block watches, the community groups, and be at those types of events, and weren't attached to having to respond to 911 calls. So like I said, I think the key here is balance.
Chief Lees, and I'm going to go back to what I had at a previous meeting, and that's where I think less than full-time and reserves can step up, could be implemented, okay? Particularly if they're retirees, because they're retirees, they don't need a whole bunch of training. They just left a job and they know what to do. And they can go up there and do, particularly in the daytime, some of those things where you're talking, where you're saying that to talk to the public. I just, it can't just be us spending more money for more officers. I get that we need more presence, but we have to go up there and utilize all the resources that are available to us. And we haven't used those two components in 10 to 15 years. And I really believe that that's something that we need to look at. The use of less than full-time and reserves, auxiliaries, whatever the wording is, we need to bring that program back. We can't leave those things on the table and have our beat officers being tied up, going from to the block watches and things, and our community officers can be freed up to do other more proactive things as well, when we can use those reserve officers, because the public sees the uniform. And I would never say that because the day that you retire, that you stop knowing this job. Okay, that is my opinion. I think we got to do more than just put more police officers on the payroll. We have to be smart in how we utilize our police officers. Stop making our police officers do things that are functions that other people can do. And again, and I totally agree with Councilman Hughes and Councilman Oliver. We need to expand this SERV program. We have got to find that money. If it's that successful that you're saying, then we have to find the money and get that balance you're talking about, Chief. Anybody else? Pasha, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, thank you through the chair. I just want to go back to Jimmy, and I want to thank him for expressing that. And he was able to articulate it so well. I think he got the point across that everybody has been trying to say. And I hope that the residents heard what he is saying. And Jimmy, I would like you to come on Saturday, if you cannot in person, maybe via Zoom, to the community meeting that's being held regarding this, because I think you summed it up in a nutshell. I mean, this is a multifaceted issue. This is not just, police issue in terms of, just directly combating crime, but also trying to figure out the reason for its occurrence. So we need community solutions. And I think you're able to articulate that better than anyone has so far. No offense, Councilman Oliver, you do a great job as well. But Jimmy, that was great. We could use you to state that on Saturday. That's all. Thank you.
Now, Chief Lee, before we go to Bosch's thing, Chief, how would you increase serve or make it more efficient or expand it? What do you need to expand the serve program?
Through the chair, I think the model that Guy Burney has set up, and the other thing is I think you have to recognize that the serve program has evolved in the few years it's been in existence, and it's one of those things that's morphed into some areas where the need exists, and honestly, that's more of a question for Guy than myself. Each time I meet with him, and he comes up with again another idea or a way to address some of the problems more uniquely or more directly. So I really think that's something you need to invite him to a meeting to and have him talk about, because like I said, just recently us talking about some of these new mentoring programs that he's come up with, and he's been able to get some volunteerism involved, as well as these radio spots that he's going to start doing. I think those are just great things, but to ask me what more is needed in prevention, I'm going to tell you need to talk to him.
I need to talk to you. You're the police chief. Okay. No. Okay. And I want the public to understand that I'm not trying to put the police chief down, but when it comes to crime prevention, you are the go-to guy, not Guy. I understand about serve, but you are the go-to guy. And if serve and something else is needed, you need to let us know, and Guy needs to let us know. But that doesn't get put off onto Guy about like that. And that's the way it's coming across to me. And maybe I'm mistaken what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just speaking of the specifics of it because, like I said, I can't do it, anybody's job down to the details, whether it's Guy Burney or the chief of detectives or captain of patrol. So, I rely on those folks for a lot of that information. And in this case, I think Guy is the one to talk about the specifics of where he thinks the need is. So that's all I'm saying. I think the program is good overall. I participate in it. I'm involved in the call-ins as well as some of the other activities. And but I just think that Guy really does a good job of presenting the ideas and the direction.
So going forward today, what can we expect different from the Youngstown Police Department in response to the increase? I don't call it an uptick. I call it the rather drastic increase in the homicides and general crime. Because in addition to the homicides, we have complaints about lower crimes, such as the dirt bikes that are running rampant, the ATVs. People can't drive down Market Street because motorcycles have Market and Midlothian blocked off, like they own the streets. What's the police department going to be doing in response to these complaints, not just the homicides, but the other crime as well? What can we expect from you?
Well,
your department?
Through the chair directly, there is actually an extra detail out as we speak to address some of the ATV and dirt bike complaints. We've been working in conjunction with the sheriff's office and their drone unit to track some of these individuals, and we've been using some other tactics that don't involve pursuits in order to try and basically track them down and to take care of the problem. And again, this is forming a program to respond to the problem. Like I said, we're going to revisit some of the things we were doing through 2019 that helped reduce the homicide rate to deal with it this year as well. And then we're going forward from there. Guy and I have talked about, like I said, some new things that they're doing with the SERVE program. And again, like I said, I think the expansion of this mentoring program and what he's come up with there will be a good thing, as well as using the technology with the podcast and the combination with the radio station and that. So we're headed out there to address this on varying levels, and as much as your issues with speeding in your ward. So that's where we're headed at this time.
Chief, you sent me a rather interesting article, kind of fell in line with one of my topics. The contributing factors. What are the contributing factors to this increase in overall crime? What do you see as it?
Well, I think some of it could actually capture, maybe if you want to talk about, would be a term I've seen is COVID aggression. People have been basically locked up too long. They're getting out there and they're wanting to circulate and mingle. Part of the other problem is that there are some specific issues that relate to some of the recent homicides that we're focusing in on now that are kind of unique to the time and individuals involved. So we have that, but in addition to that, you're also dealing with where the officers have not been as proactive given the national climate, and nobody wants to be the star of the next viral video. So I think in a lot of cases the officers have not been maybe quite as proactive as they would have been otherwise, and I think again that's a national phenomenon as well.
Is criticism of the police department of police officers new?
I'm sorry?
Criticism of the police officers. Is that a new phenomenon? Hasn't that happened from the time that you and I first got on the job? That the police officers have been subject to public scrutiny and public criticism.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I don't think that it has been to the degree it has been recently. And again, there's also data, and I can't remember if it's in that particular article or not, but there have been record retirements with a lot of police departments across the nation too, which is seen as a response to that. So to answer your question, we know there's always been criticism. Has it been to the level of the past 6 months to a year? No, I wouldn't agree with that.
That's one thing you and I would differ on, because we now have the technology to do that. But the criticism that's been applied to the officers across the country are the same criticisms that I heard when I was a rookie. I watched TV shows back in the 70s, when they where police officers were complaining about public criticism and the public not understanding or appreciating. So yes, there are more cameras, but it is truthfully a part of the job that you and I took an oath. We went in there knowing full well that what we were going to do was not something that the public was going to like all the time. No one, Chief, likes to be told, no, you can't do it. And no one wants to go to jail. I don't care how guilty the person is, okay? They still don't want to go to jail. But the police officers, they are out there, they took an oath, they are on patrol, they are receiving their paychecks. And while they're out there, they still got a job to do. Chief, they still got a job to do. I can't say that too often. They knew that they're going to be subject to public scrutiny. They knew that coming into the job, and they fought for those jobs. I appreciate their work, but I also acknowledge the complaints of the public as well. So it's, what, Chief? It comes and goes. There's an ebb and flow to all of this. You know that, and I know that. Anybody else? Chief, did you want to respond?
No, I just think we'll maybe agree to disagree on some of that. That's all.
Okay, good enough. Now we're going to go to community policing policies and procedures. Basha.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to express, I guess, my grievance and concern slightly with the community policing program. I know due to constraints and funding, we went from 7 officers to 4 officers. Those officers have a very heavy workload. I know, for example, on the south side, actually 4 council people share Officer Ott on the south side. All of the 7th and 6th ward encompass the south side, a portion of the 1st ward and a portion of the 5th ward. I say all of that to say when the program was laid out, it was supposed to cover quality of life issues, which it does, and it does a pretty good job doing that. But my concern is I know our officers work particular hours, and when residents have a grievance outside of those hours, I've been receiving concerns that when they call down to the police department or the non-emergency number and give that concern in lieu of the officer on beat, taking care of that issue, everything gets passed down to community policing. They're also now serving as, for lack of better words, almost it seems as though a scapegoat even for other departments within City Hall. I know several times there'll be issues that will be given to the community police when it should not go to community police. It'll then be forwarded, say, for example, whether it's code enforcement, zoning, health department, or wherever it may go. And then that department calls back to community policing, where the community police should really focus on what they are doing. But I feel they are being overwhelmed and utilized and just, I mean, for, like I said, lack of better words, kind of used as a scapegoat. So it's not allowing the program to be as efficient as it should, because everything goes back to them and it shouldn't, if that makes sense.
Chief.
Yes, in response to that, I'll talk to Sergeant Patton about that tomorrow, and see if there's a feeling for that as well. There, it may be that, you know, we've pushed into maybe code enforcement or zoning a little more than maybe we should be, and you know, maybe they're you know, experiencing some understaffing and they're putting on as well. So I'll check with him tomorrow and see what we can do about that.
Thank you. And Anita, if I may ask a direct follow-up, because say, even for example, if our sanitation workers are going down the street and there's a mattress they're not able to pick up because it's not wrapped, I feel in lieu of calling the community police officer, and the first point of contact a resident has is a uniformed officer showing up at their door talking about a mattress bag. I don't think that, I mean, sometimes I think that just gives the wrong perception, whereas I feel in that case the sanitation worker can call back to the office, and either they could have them even on their truck to leave with a note. I feel that we could just be more effective and still, you know, work as a team. But I don't think that one officer can do all of those functions. I feel there needs to be, you know, better support from other departments, and then as well as other officers, if we're trying to move towards this community police model, should step up as well, even though, quote unquote, it's not their job. They're not community police, but yes, they're still officers, and I think they should share in some of these duties and responsibilities.
Through the chair, if I might just throw something in. When it comes to something like those mattresses not being bagged, and again, this is the sanitation's issue, but would it be maybe a big issue, a problem, that if they had like a form that was already set up that they could leave with the mattress along with a mattress bag saying you need to bag this and provide them with the mattress bag? I don't know, again, what the cost might be or the issues associated with that, but it just seems to me that might be a direction to take. If it's out there without a bag on it, it's probably because they don't have one.
Right. And I mean, and we do have mattress kits and notes, because I know Officer Ott leaves them for residents. So I mean, so that's, I guess that's one of my points. I feel that if sanitation is already there, then they can just do that to alleviate the burden off of our officer, because our officers have so many, tasks to do that we just need to communicate better, and just work as a team better to make things more efficient, and just, I think, function a little better.
You won't get any argument from me.
Thank you. Anything else? No, Chief, I'd like to see us do some, not on your part, but I'd like to see the city do some more creative things, because it is my opinion that police officers are being utilized to do things that, in my opinion, are not and were never meant to be part of policing. Okay. They became the mental health officers and the social workers and I want to see police officers, they can report it to the correct agency, but I don't want them I don't want to put that responsibility onto our police officers. They are not social workers, okay? And we're making them social workers. And we need to go up there and find the funding and get it back to the right thing, so that our police officers are out here patrolling our streets and curtailing crime and restoring peace and tranquility to the streets of Youngstown, so that our citizens can walk the street and sit in their front yards in the summertime and not have the boom boxes and the bang bang and everything else going like crazy. I want to see us put police officers to work as police officers, and I'm gonna get in trouble saying this. They're not the community. They're not the babysitters of the world. And I'm gonna hold every police officer responsible for the job that he or she is supposed to do, but we cannot be doing that. We cannot make them responsible and be the catch-all. Police officers cannot be the catch-all. Their job as police officers is a dangerous job. It's mentally grueling. We know some of the cost that's involved. So we don't need to put this additional stuff on them. That is, I want you to understand that I want to find a SERV or any other program that can help do those things, that can take the burden off of our police officers, so they are police officers. And understand what I'm saying. Chief, I want you to understand how I'm saying this. They're not the dump. And that's what we're making the police department to, in some ways, to be the place where you dump every problem that society has. Okay. I want them to be back at being on patrol, doing their jobs, and that's it. Okay, Chief?
Agreed.
Does anyone else have anything for the chief? Attorney Vivo, you're here for the law department?
Yes, good afternoon, I am.
Yes. The piece, I had asked, this is a little off topic, but we were, from a previous meeting under unfinished business, there was legislation about the take-home cars. Is that legislation ready?
It is. My understanding, it's not my project, but Jeff asked me to participate should you ask the question. My understanding is it is complete, and there'll be a draft circulating next week, I guess.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I want to get it before council for further discussion, and then I expect that law to be obeyed. Thank you.
You're
Anything
welcome.
else? Basha, Julius, Jimmy. Thank you, Chief.
I just want to say I agree with Bosch's earlier statements. So,
Which one particular, Julius?
but community policing,
About the being overutilized?
yes.
Overutilized and not, and again, a place where we're dumping stuff on them.
Right, and plus you still causing confusion in the community when you got a specific unit that's supposed to be for a specific thing, but then you got them over here doing something else, and then if the neighbors see that or a criminal element sees that, and it makes things just way too convoluted, and people get in trouble like that.
Right. Basha, anything before we adjourn? Chief?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Jimmy?
I'm good.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, see you guys next month, same bat channel, time, same bat channel. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.